Take a look at this map. It's a map of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at the peak of its dominion in 1619. And this one, which is a map of the Second Polish Republic in 1920. At the time of this map, Józef Pilsudski was the de facto leader of Poland, and boy was he ambitious. Essentially, he wanted to make Poland look like this map once again by forming a union between Lithuania and Ukraine. But after the failure of the Soviet-Polish War 1919 to 1921, he began to doubt the restoration of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. However, he continued to preach the idea to associates of his. One of these associates was Joseph Beck, whom in 1932 became the Minister of Foreign Affairs. By this time, an aged Pilsudski resumed the back seat on politics, though he was still very much in power. Beck was inspired by Pilsudski's ideas. He aimed for Poland to become a regional coalition that would be able to stand up to the might of the world powers. For this plan to work, he built upon a number of Pilsudski's political strategies. Beck's plan of action was quite simple in theory: to remain on the defensive with the Soviet Union and to buddy up with Nazi Germany. Beck saw Hitler as an opportunity for Poland to expand its borders, and throughout the 1930s and up until 1939, Joseph had regularly visited Hitler and German generals to improve relations and to voice his support of Hitler's foreign policies. His efforts were criticised by peoples in his own government and foreign ones. However, for the most part, German-Polish relations were quite positive. Until 1939 that is. Josef's unwillingness to commit Poland to Germany angered Hitler, and he was presented with a series of demands such as ceding former German lands that Poland had gained from the Treaty of Versailles back to Germany. Hitler saw that he could no longer seek a peaceful manner in which to establish a puppet state in Poland. On August 23rd, 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, stunning the world. And there's little need to say that Beck was devastated. An invasion of Poland was imminent. At 4:40 am, the Luftwaffe, under the command of Captain Walter Segal, bombed the Polish town of Werlin. A few minutes later, at 4:45 am, the Deutschland-class battleship Schleswig-Holstein began shelling the Polish ammunition depot located on the Westerplatte Peninsula, Danzig. Shortly after the shelling, Lieutenant Wilhelm Henningsen and his Marines disembarked from the battleship and launched an attack on the Polish fort located on the peninsula. Henningsen and his Marines hadn't expected such a fierce defence from the Polish infantry battalion stationed at the fort. He was mortally wounded in action and transported back to the ship. Whilst the Marines and the Polish infantry battled for control of the peninsula, the Danzig police, led by Willy Bethke, stormed the streets of the Free City with the objective of capturing the post office. They were later reinforced by SS units and Free Police ADGZ heavy armoured cars. The post office was defended by 56 people, the first of which was a man named Konrad Godowski, a combat engineer and an Army Reserve second lieutenant. He, along with others, organised the militia to defend it from German units. These people held off the Germans for roughly 15 hours before the Germans flushed them out with gas and fire. Let's jump back to 5 am. German troops have started crossing the Polish border in various locations. Polish troops were positioned along the borders of Germany in order to protect our industry in the west, which was vital for the war effort. However, the majority of Polish officers, along with British and French high command, suggested that Polish troops erect defences along a shorter line backed with natural defensive positions such as the Vistula River. This strategy, named Plan West, proved fatal to Poland. There were a number of complications revolved around the logistics of the plan, which lowered the effectiveness of Polish defences. Whilst the Poles put up a hard fight against Germany, the troops had to retreat after a few days of intense combat. German technological and numerical superiority rendered any chance of a Polish victory impossible. But then again, they wasn't expecting to defeat Germany by themselves. The entire idea of Plan West was to hold off the Germans in time for Britain and France to defeat Germany. The 3rd of September, after giving several ultimatums to Germany, Britain and France declared war. However, that's really all they did, declare war. And aside from a few skirmishes, there was no large-scale military offensive by the two powers. It was more of an economic war, in guns and bombs and men and planes type of thing. The British and French governments feared replicating the events of the Great War, and so they sought to strangle Germany, economically speaking, into submission. However, the Poles hadn't expected this sort of response from the Allies. Their sovereignty had been declared protected by the two of the greatest powers in Europe, let alone the world. By the 14th of September, this is how much the Poles had lost and Germans had gained. Nobody had expected Germany to advance this far in just 14 days. If you look back to the Great War, it was rare for an army to gain a few feet on the Western Front. It's insane when you think about it, because most of the people in power were World War I veterans. They had gained experience on the disgustingly stagnant fronts of the Great War. The Poles had fought well, but they couldn't handle the might of Germany, and sadly, there was worse to come. For the 17th of September arrives, but we'll find out what happened then, in the final episode of the invasion of Poland. If you've liked this episode, do subscribe and share this video amongst your friends. Thank you very much.